Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this collaborative session. We'll be starting shortly. Welcome for joining us for this collaborative session. We will be starting shortly. Thank you. For those who are just joining us, welcome to this collaborative session. We will be starting shortly. As we are waiting people to continue joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. Just say your name and the place you are calling from. And we would love to hear what is your dream holiday destination if you have the opportunity. Thank you for those who are joining. We will be giving a couple of more seconds for other participants to join. We will be starting shortly. As we are waiting for people to enter the room, please use the chat box to introduce yourself, your name, the place you are calling from, and if you have a chance, what would be your dream destination for a great holiday? Oh, that's great. People are interested in Zanzibar, Patagonia. Yeah, feel free to continue introducing yourself for a couple of more seconds. For those who are joining us, we will be starting this session shortly. And as we wait for other participants to join, please introduce yourself in the chat box. Your name, the place you are calling from, and your dream holiday destination if you have a chance. Oh, great, Jamaica. Switzerland mountains. That's great. New Zealand, that's a great destination. We will be starting in 15 seconds, so continue introducing yourself as you join this collaborative session. We'll be interested to know who are joining this session and what is your dream holiday destination if you have a chance. Thank you for joining this collaborative session. I am Salomon Machudo. I am the regional facilitator for West and Central Africa and working with IGL. We will start in a few seconds this session. In the meantime, continue introducing yourself in the chat room. Before we start, I would like to invite you all to choose your language by clicking on the globe at the bottom of the screen and choose your language. We would also like to let you know that this meeting will be recorded while in plenary. In the chat, you will find a link to a virtual notepad that you can use to capture your reflections, learning, and next steps. Please use it. With that, I will pass it over to my colleague James to introduce the session. Over to you.
Thanks, Solomon. Welcome everybody to today's session. Today is our last day of this COVID-19 learning series. For those of you who've had the pleasure to join us in other themes, we're grateful. We hope you've enjoyed the learning. Today's session is on enhancing partnerships between partnership models between international and local partners. Essentially, we want to have a friendly discussion exploring how the COVID-19 pandemic has presented new opportunities and challenges in structuring partnership agreements to empower local partners. Now we will start with a short presentation highlighting an example from World Vision Somalia, and we will then break out into small discussion groups around a few convening questions, depending on the numbers of attendees. Finally, we will come back to the plenary to hear about the various highlights from each group's conversations. My name is James Akai. I'm a deals regional facilitator. I cover the Horn, East and Southern Africa. Now, I'd like to introduce our speakers and facilitators today. So we have Simon Nyabwengi, who is the National Director for World Vision International in Somalia. We've got Charles Kevin Otieno, who is a technical unit team lead at World Vision International in Somalia. Then we have Adamu Mohammed, who is a program director in Northeast of the Northeast Youth Initiative for Development in Nigeria. And then finally, we have Grace Krauser, who is our colleague within IDEAL. She's our food security officer. So we would like to start with the World Vision Somalia. Simon will take us through an interesting presentation of how they have learned from the COVID-19 experience and looking at and how that experience is influencing how they would want to remodel their partnerships with local partners. Over to you, Simon, for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. And I hope that my video is clear, that I'm clear. And just want to begin by introducing the subject of localization. I think it is not a new subject. I want to start by saying that all international organizations were local organizations at their beginning, and the reason why they became international organizations is that they were able to deal with the issues that brought them into existence, and after that they saw the need and expanded into other locations, and that is where they became international organizations. And when you look at international organizations, even right now, they still have local programs. They have national programs that they run. I think this is true of World Vision. It is true of Save the Children. It is true of Oxfam, because the humanitarian and development needs, even in their countries of origin, are still there. And so we see that in the locations that we work in Somalia, you have organizations that have been formed by people who are interested in resolving humanitarian or developmental issues in their locations. And these are the ones that we call local NGOs or local community-based organizations. And there has been a recognition, and this was recognized in the World Humanitarian Forum, that the local organizations are actually the first ones to respond to anything that happens within their locality, and for good reasons, because they are there, they are staffed by local people, they know what the issues are, and as it is true in every disaster, it is your neighbor who comes to help you whenever there is an issue before anybody else comes in. But as these local organizations have grown, and in tandem or together with international organization, the question then becomes, are local organizations an opportunity or a risk, or is the whole process of localization an opportunity or a risk and the question is to who? To the international NGOs, to their local communities, to who? And we will be exploring that as we go along. Next slide. Good. local organizations have something that international organizations do not have. And what they have is actually the knowledge of the local context. I think the wearer of the shoes knows where it pinches. Whoever has been born and brought up in a certain location, they have an idea of what are the issues that we keep on grappling with on a day-to-day basis, and what are the solutions. And maybe the only thing that holds them from being able to offer those solutions is just an issue of resource. But in terms of their knowledge of the issues, in terms of the solutions that they can come up with, they know that. And they're also very cost effective. When you look at the staffing and the structure of local organizations, the bigger an organization becomes, the more bureaucratic it becomes, and for good reasons. Because when you have 2 or 3 people coming up to form an organization, reaching decisions is very easy. When you increase that by twice the number to 6, you multiply the number of people who need to be consulted. When you make that to 12, then it becomes more complicated. When you have organizations the size of World Vision that have over 40,000 staff and in 100 countries, then you have to put in a bureaucracy. You have to put in a structure that will enable you to manage all aspects of that organization. And by their very nature then, international organizations are expensive. But local organizations, because they are smaller, they are staffed by local personnel, their structures, administrative, finance, HR structures are simple. They're not as expensive. Next. And so it's always useful to sit and ask, what perspective do local organizations have? And what perspectives do international organizations have? And then try to bring the 2 perspectives together. And as we will see later on in the slide, when you eventually bring those 2 perspectives together, then you get to see what is the sweet spot, where if local organizations and international organizations came together to provide solutions to the problems that they are seeing, then they will be a lot more effective in partnership and in collaboration than in competition. And so what local organizations see themselves offering is that they are doing a direct contribution to the welfare and well-being of their communities. And because these communities, in these communities is their mothers, their grandmothers, their aunties, their brothers, their sisters, they are involved, they are committed, they are passionate. For them, it is not a job, it is something that they strongly believe in, that they need to bring in solutions that will change the lives of people that they know. I don't think they talk of beneficiaries, they talk of our community members, our families. They bring expertise and experience to local problems and solutions. And as we have seen earlier, they are better placed to do that. And sometimes they see international NGOs as expensive, out of touch, and with elitist solutions. And we can forgive them for thinking that, because the more an organization becomes complex, the more highly intelligent and people you hire, and the more complex is their thought processes. And when they begin to put those processes on paper and those solutions on paper, when you read some of the research and the assessments that are done by international NGOs, you will be forgiven for thinking that you're actually reading an academic paper. And so they are right in seeing some of us as being out of touch and with elitist solutions. Next slide, please. And what do international NGOs see, and especially in the light of the discussions that have come with the localization agenda? One, if you were to be a fly on the wall in the boardrooms of international NGOs, you will hear this discussion taking place, that local NGOs are eating their breakfast, and very soon they'll be eating their lunch, and very soon they'll be eating their supper, and there will be nothing left for international NGOs. And again, the fear of international NGOs is justified, because when you look at the funding structure of some UN pooled funding mechanism, it's already been structured in favor of local NGOs, where they say this percentage of funding will go to local NGOs. And some donors are already saying this percentage of funding has to go to a locally registered organization operating in this particular area. And so international NGOs see and fear that what they used to have in terms of monopoly of access to resources, that is being eroded and being taken away. And international NGOs see that see local NGOs as being ill-equipped and without the necessary systems and structures to manage risk. I remember sitting in discussions about risk management about 3-4 years back, and the local NGOs would always complain that the risk management system that has been set up by the UN and the international NGOs is designed to lock them out of opportunities. An accusation that, and if you looked at the structure of the risk management system or the risk assessment, it was by the time you finished to answer all those questions and you were not able to provide capacity on your ability to manage risk in certain areas, you are certainly locked out. There's also the whole issue of poor governance structures and conflict of interest. And unfortunately, we have seen things coming in, people of good intention starting a local organization, but they have not put in the necessary checks and balances system. And as a result of the lack of that check and balances system, you find resources being diverted or being squandered or being misused. And international NGOs could also see that NGOs as being opportunistic and addressing that opportunism as passion and concern for their communities. And they also accuse them of poor execution of projects, and where the truism that cheap is expensive comes into play. Next slide. But then when you look at the value added of both international NGOs and local NGOs, you can see a confluence, a coming together, where if that coming together was to work well, then they would each leverage the strengths and the opportunities that they have. And for the local NGOs, it is local presence and acceptability, the ability to respond immediately, and a good understanding of local development challenges, the local ownership and accountable to local communities, being able to implement at lower cost, hiring local, and therefore being able to build the local economy. And for us in Somalia, one of the key advantage that our partnership with local NGOs brings is that they are in very deep field locations where our security policies would not allow us to go into, but they are there, they're working there. And so that partnership has helped us to reach those deep field locations. And when you look at what international NGOs bring to the table, you have an international audience, reach and influence and power. And we know that some local international NGOs, the Save the Children, the Oxfams of this world, they are able to go to the table of policymakers at an international level and influence for policy and funding to issues or needs that policymakers and donors need to address in regard to local communities. And so they're able to bring attention to local disasters and mobilize resources. I think we all are aware, those of us who have been around and old enough, we know we are the World Campaign, and we know of campaigns that are run by international NGOs that bring a lot of attention to an issue. And because they have the power and the influence and they are listened to, they're able to influence laws and policies in favor of humanitarian and development aid. And over the years, they have developed excellent leadership, governance, risk management systems that have been developed over the years and which could be of benefit to local NGOs. Next slide. So the question then becomes, should we be competing or should we be partnering? And I think partnership, based on what I have said earlier, does make a lot of sense. Because each, as we have seen in the previous slide, has unique strengths that can be leveraged for the benefit of their primary clients. So the local NGOs, they will work for the communities and the children in the communities. The international NGOs say we work for the communities and the children in the communities. And so how can we bring the two together to make sure that the client that they are working for gets the complete benefit and there is impact and their lives are transformed? And so, as I said earlier, all NGOs, NGOs were local NGOs, and international NGOs have a responsibility, it's a moral and ethical responsibility to build up local NGOs for them to be effective responders and development agents. Next slide. And so what, to borrow from the Americans, who are always in search of what they call a more perfect union, what can be a more perfect union? And in our thinking, we think that there is need to move from transactional partnerships to transformation of local partners into effective organizations. I think most international NGOs can be blamed for this, that their relationship with local NGOs is more transactional. So we have a project, we need a local NGO partner, we sign a project agreement where your responsibility is to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and our responsibility is to transfer you the money. And then once you do that, and then we are fine and we go, once the project ends, we go our separate ways. Well, that funding is welcome and the local NGOs welcome the funding, but really in terms of building those local organizations into effective organizations, we have not done much because it was a transactional arrangement. We got into a contract. After it was done, all of us walked away. But if we were to build the governance, the financial, the fundraising, the project management functions of local partners, then we would begin to create and to build those partners into effective organizations that can be able to continue addressing the needs into their communities as long as those needs are there, and create impact and deliver impact and transform the lives of their communities. We need to build their risk management systems, and as World Vision, we have done a lot of work in building risk management systems for local partners, because we look at what their risk factors are, where they could fail, and we come up with a plan to address those. Linkages to fundraising opportunities. Some local NGOs are limited in terms of writing in a language that donors would respond to. And for that reason, then we can be able to help them in linking them to fundraising opportunities. And then building their staff capacity, and all this involves mentoring and training between local and international NGOs. Next slide. And so in terms of practical examples, and this will be my second last slide, and then we can open up for discussion, so we can go to groups as Solomon and James and Tim will guide us. So one is, as an organization, we work with 42 local NGOs partners in a variety of sectors. And each of these partners comes with the various capacity levels, some at a very high level and with structures close to ourselves, some are very with nascent structures, weak systems. And what we do then is we try to move away from a bit just being transactional, but beginning to build their capacity. We do a comprehensive capacity assessment, and then once we identify where their systems are weak, then we put them through a training program to a level that they are able to run on their own and to manage risk. And during the COVID crisis, we worked a lot more with local NGOs that were able to keep field operations running, and we truly appreciated their contribution. And this was because they did not have to travel to anywhere. They were in the communities, were not affected by travel restrictions, and that one worked perfectly. And we provided them with the necessary tools to mitigate risk. Next slide. So in conclusion, I would say that we are better off with collaboration and partnership, which is a win-win. We have to shed off mutual distrust and suspicion of one another, and well-structured partnerships that increase local capacity and ensure quality of delivery of services to local communities will serve us well and will serve the communities that we all claim to speak for well. And I think that is the conclusion of my slides. So thank you very much, and back to you, James.
Thanks, Simon, for your presentation. Now, we all know this is an old discussion, and I know, most of us would have questions on the slides themselves. So we'll try to guide us through that discussion. So thanks, Simon, for that inspiring presentation. Now, during the following hour, we will provide an opportunity for some exchange and sharing around the key issues that have been addressed by Simon. We have structured some 3 questions to allow us to build that discussion. So we will dive into some small groups of discussion to engage in conversations that will focus on 3 main convening questions. And the questions are, the first one, what changes have we seen when it comes to how international NGOs partner with local NGOs during the COVID-19 pandemic? Do we have any specific successes that we could highlight from that period? The second question, what lessons are emerging on how to strengthen partnership and partnership arrangements between international NGOs and local NGOs? And the third question is, what opportunities exist to advance learning and capacity building on this topic of partnerships, enhancing partnerships between international NGOs and local NGOs? What should we focus on going forward? Now, each breakout room will be led by a facilitator. I will be in one of those groups. We will only have 2 breakouts there. So we will have Charles Otieno in one of those breakouts, and Adamu Mohammed, who is from Northeast on a youth project. We will also have Grace Krauser in one of those breakouts. Please note that breakout rooms will unfortunately not have simultaneous interpretation. However, should you need interpretation, do not hesitate to let the facilitators know. We will organize specific interpreters for you. So don't shy away from asking for interpretation. With that, we will see you in about 30 minutes. We will be sent into our breakouts. Please enjoy your sessions. Meredith. Sorry, Susan. All right, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your sessions. Can you hear me?
We're hearing you.
Perfect. I hope. Thanks. Welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your breakouts and you had some enriching conversations over there. Thank you for your participation. We, in my breakout, we had quite a rich conversation. One of our participants thought we should have had this in the plenary, but we will find ways to cross-pollinate those ideas. Now, I was able to navigate through the groups and can say that the exchanges were very rich. I will pass it over to the facilitators now, who will briefly report on the discussions for each room. Now, in my group, there was Charles, but I will report on behalf of my group. And so I think I could have Suzanne. Are you able to project for me? Or Charles, are you there to report on behalf of the group? If not, I will present on behalf of the group. Suzanne, are you able to
Would you like me to project the notes for that group?
Please. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do it. So we'll spend 5 minutes on each of these report outs, and then we will be wrapping up. So in my group, fortunately, we also had Simon, who presented in the plenary. In total, we had about 6 non-ideal, guests contributing to the conversation. As we wait for the slide deck from the screen share from Suzanne. But generally, in the discussion, we explored opportunities for strengthening, partnerships or enhancing partnership arrangements between international organizations and local organizations. A lot of our discussion, was mirroring on Simon's presentation. We looked at opportunities for capacity strengthening or building capacity, of the leaderships of local organizations. We talked about, opportunities for, strengthening, for building trust between international organizations and local organizations. We thought that there is, there is a chance to relook the kind of partnerships that we have, mirroring from Simon's mention of transactional partnerships. Suzanne, the projection is not of the breakout, so maybe I could just read out from the breakout.
Sorry, I suppose that you see very, very small here.
No, I got it now. This is fine.
Okay.
This is fine. Yeah. So So for the first question, the first question was what changes have we seen when it comes to how NGOs partner with NGOs during the pandemic, and we discussed issues around advances in technology, and meeting online, working virtually. That's influenced how those partnerships have been remodeled. We've seen local partners are help. Simon mentioned how local partners in Somalia local partners are helping in Somalia to create curriculum. In Uganda, they're talking about the private sector as well being involved in local partnerships. So yeah, we also explored how local partnerships can be with both for profit and non-profit. Suzanne, just move to the next slide on to question 2. Yeah, what lessons are emerging? I talked about some of these. Lessons emerging on how to strengthen these partnerships. There was a mention of, focus on building technical capacity for local NGOs. And someone mentioned how the new USAID strategy on local partnerships is talking about building capacity of building organizational capacity for local NGOs. So the discussion there was not to just focus on technical capacity building, but also organizational capacity building. So that's something that's emerging on how to strengthen those partnerships. We also talked about, INGOs building in their reimbursement, whereas local NGOs may not have quite the luxury. USAID may need to make it easier to apply or provide additional incentives for local organizations. And I think there's initiatives going on about this. Next question, Suzanne. Lastly, on what opportunities exist, like I said, there's opportunity to build trust between international and local. There's also an opportunity for INGOs in learning and capacity building, focusing on decolonization of development and knowledge. We talked about focus on mentoring and coaching of local partnership leaders. So broadly, that's what we discussed in our group. There's a lot more content in there that we will take a closer look at, within IDEAL, and figure out how to package for future, intervention partnerships with our IDEAL BHA implementers. Now I'll hand it over to the next group who will present. Adamu.
I believe I will present, but Adamu, please highlight anything that is missed. All right, and then Karina, are you able to share your screen as well? I think that was a good way to look at the notes. All right. So for the first question, some of the themes that you were pulling out, James, definitely resonated with our group as well. We discussed how COVID-19 paved the way for the localization of activities. So that was shared by Adamu, looking at how local NGOs took the lead responsibility in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, which instilled a lot of trust and I think strengthened existing partnerships and capacities. So those that had really strong relationships beforehand, it was just shown that the capacity is there, which instilled, again, a lot of confidence in the delivery of services. One of the challenges that was shared by one of the participants was about the switching from a development to emergency model, and how it was difficult sometimes to get the donors in the community on the same page, that there was some challenges around planning and implementation and alignment. But was a success, so for the second question, was that that technology piece that you were mentioning, James. I think one of our participants shared that everyone got kind of leveled up on technology and learned how to use it, which gave more direct access to international NGOs and donors from the local side, so that this was such an important aspect of effective implementation during this time, since a lot of INGOs, or the international NGOs, were working from home and unable to actually be a part of the service delivery. So one of I think it might have been Buck who shared this other perspective from the international NGOs around just building these relationships in general, and how can we, asking tough questions around both how do we do the capacity building and enable responsible benchmarks, enable responsible expectations, offering enough resources as well as decision-making power, while also monitoring and providing support. It is a challenging balance, but I think in the discussion, it's clear that there's this desire to find partnership models and to continue to enhance the partnership models that empower both the INGOs and the NGOs delivering these programs. And then for the final question, it seems that there was a lot of really interesting opportunities for learning, that there isn't a ton captured around this aspect. I liked Gitao shared this kind of final point around trust being such an important factor in partnerships, and that we need to learn about effective accountability mechanisms. So considering the different power dynamics within these partnerships. So whether it's resources or decision-making power, or access to donors, all of those different pieces are really, you know, coming together in a partnership that works effectively is challenging to identify the perfect recipe. But if we did find ways to build trust, to enable mentorship, as well as capacity building for the local partners, and again, seeing it, to Simon's point, seeing it as less transactional and more as transformational. That was a point that many different participants in our group harped on, because I think that that's the desire. And yeah, I think that those are the main points that I feel that we're good to share, in addition to what you shared, James. Is there anyone from my group who wants to perhaps elaborate on a point made? All right, great. It was a really amazing discussion, and everyone participated, so it was really wonderful. So thank you.
Right, thanks, Grace. At this point, we're coming to the end of this session. It's been great having these conversations. You know, I'll be looking to hear a lot more from the other breakouts, but you know, the folks from my breakout are also very curious on the content of discussion on the other side. So don't worry about this. Thank you all for your participation and contributions. We will be using the discussion notes taken during the small groups to compose a brief 1 to 2 pager that will be shared with the participants. So you will not have missed out on the rich discussions. You can also find in the description of this session on Woover a list of useful resources that you can explore. Now, before we close this session, we will share in the chat a very brief survey that we would love for you to complete. So just check in the chat box. There'll be a link to that survey. This is to say a special thanks to our presenters, particularly Simon, for the enriching slide deck that provoked a lot of thoughts. Our facilitators and note takers, all those folks who have been working, at the back end for your guidance and help throughout this session. Our amazing participants, those who've been who've graced this session, and those who continue to, embrace our discussions in the other sessions within our Ideals COVID-19 learning series. I would like to invite all the participants to activate their camera for a group picture, a group photo, please. For those who are camera shy today, we are going to have to impose some smile on your faces. So please activate your cameras. This is not going to take a while, and then we will be off your space in a few minutes, in a minute or so. I will let Suzanne or whoever is taking this photo, because I'm not great at this. I will let you take this. So does everybody have their camera on, particularly those who have the bandwidth? Good to see all these amazing faces. Who's taking the photo? Is it Grace? Is this Suzanne? So we'll let them know when it's done.
Yeah,
Are we
take a picture now. Thanks so much.
You've done it?
Yes.
It's done?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks. Thanks. Again, thank you all for taking the time to join us. Please be sure to join our remaining sessions in the learning stream. Refer to our agenda for that. And please give us feedback on how this went for you. Please go to the link that's in the chat box for a brief survey. We appreciate your time. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.